welcome to my change strategy. Here's my stakeholders. At the heart of it is the Royal Roads Board of Governors, trying to create a rich and robust policy on accessibility and inclusion. Right now they have a few models, a learning and teaching model and an equal equity and inclusive model that harbors or encourages harboring or creating a space that's inclusive to all students. Right now, Royal Roads provides a blanketed solution model or prescriptive model, which does not really align with those other pre-mentioned models that I just mentioned. So I chose these stakeholders based on their association to accessibility, their mutuality with each other, and also what they have to lose or gain from the success or failure of this. So again, the Board of Governors are at the heart of it, and we'll focus first of all to the left, and that is the Academy, and that would feature people like Dean Pedro Phillip, who is the president, and he is also in the Board of Governors. George, I'm not even going to pronounce his last name, who's a Canada Research Chair in Learning and Technology. And if we peel them back, we have people like Keith Webster, who's head of, I'm not sure of the department, CTEP or something like that. Here we have IT and the course designers, which are crucial because design is at the heart of accessibility. And next we have Roberta Mason, the VP of Student Services and Student Services, who in most cases at most universities is responsible for delivering accessibility services. And finally, we have the students of our RU who will definitely be affected by accessibility, and the administration and the staff at Royal Roads who inevitably will play a part in it all. The academic side, and inevitably sticking with academics as another major stakeholder, is a doctoral student who will do a project on assistive technology. More than likely, the student will be a person requiring accessibility and accommodation. So he will be accountable as maybe a job or a scholarship from Royal Roads. Other persons that will be working with this student will be faculty and administration, of course, and other sponsors like Accessible Media Incorporated, who might provide the guidelines for what accessibility and education is. And also they do provide sort of a journalistic perspective. So as opposed to a CBC or a hardcore journalistic entity, AMI might provide some, not watchdog ability, but may serve as a watchdog to make sure Royal Roads is doing it right. Other sponsors include WorkSafe, because there's a lot of benefits that could come from assistive technologies, and other schools, right, that this researcher could align with or provide some kind of stakeholdership with. And the next important stakeholder is a group of students performing action or participatory action research. Now, participatory action research or action research is research formulated and conducted by the participants of the research. So it is completely unbiased and focuses on the true needs of the persons conducting the research. Now let's fast forward to stakeholder engagement, where participatory action research will play a major part in influencing the other stakeholders, because at the heart of it is a participatory action research group that is comprised of students with disability taking courses at Royal Roads and examining all the benefits and the pitfalls of doing education at Royal Roads. So moving back, we have students with disabilities definitely affected, definitely stakeholders, faculty and admin at Royal Roads. the community they could access, other persons with disabilities at different institutions. They could focus on other participatory research. They could align with companies like CNIB or AMI. Also people that are key in performing accessibility services. So although those are the stakeholders, and these are the 4 major stakeholders or the team per se. And although I sort of went downward in terms of seniority, I designed it this way, so it's omnidirectional. And we could have like a combination of like the doctoral student working with accessibility services, or students with disabilities working with the participatory action group, or the Board of Governors working with the doctoral student or AMI. So there's 1,000 different ways, but after evaluating them all, the driving force or the sponsor behind it would be Philip Steenkamp, the president, and also on the Board of Governors. Keith Webster or Dean Pedro from that side, the student. What is also very interesting though is that the Participatory Action Research Group and the doctoral student are key in this as stakeholders, because accessibility, as mentioned before, has to come from the design and the ideas of the people who need it. Hey, so some of the big opportunities or compelling reasons for change. First, maybe starting with thwarting the negative or aligning with the human rights reasons for providing proper accessibility. Some of the other good ones are accessibility is a huge buzzword now, and it might give Royal Roads the opportunity to lead in that department. Also selling accessibility. We'll get into that a bit later with the return on investment. Could collaborate in all departments. Say tourism. Accessible tourism is a big opportunity now. The MBA with entrepreneurialism. Accessibility is sort of a service that can be applied in applications, technology or accommodations to be sold to other universities or other industries. So that's just a few for now, and let's move on to how we're going to communicate this strategy. Okay, here's Royal Roads, and imagine it as a castle. Imagine it as a castle with a moat, and the moat is a barrier to accessing the castle, which is a metaphor for inclusive education. So right now, Royal Roads offers a unidimensional, blanketed, or prescriptive accessibility policy. Look here, so let's just say a pink drawbridge is the one way to accessibility right now. So Royal Roads, as a solution, puts a green drawbridge down there, and then another green one there as a possible other solution for the people who don't like pink and neon yellow bridges. Oh look, and now they've put another one down that's black. And now there's a white one. So as opposed to putting band-aid solutions, prescriptive solutions, why don't we take away the moat? Heck, let's take away all the blanketed and band-aid solution that we once believed was proper accessibility. Oh look, there's no barriers to education now. Another metaphor demonstrating the need for a paradigm shift is the one of Plato's cave analogy, where a person growing up sees the shadow of a horse outside of the cave and believes for their entire life that's what a horse is. and then you get out of the cave and find out what you thought was a horse is something completely different. So methods that railroads can spread this message is on posters, which is one way, or a multimedia way that is accessible to everyone. So maybe digital signs now that have plugins so the visually impaired and blind can read. Also closed captioning. Railroads does a great job of providing noon hour education for their staff and faculty. I call it egocation. They can do it on accessibility. They can do professional development seminars. They can make mandatory courses for their teachers on teaching persons with disabilities. There's a lot of ways that they can spread this message. So the key sponsor of this initiative would be the Board of Governors, in particular Philip Steenkamp, the president of RRU. The Academy, featuring George V. and Keith Webster. And a doctoral student conducting research on assistive technology, accommodation, and accessibility. Sponsorship, basically these four ones that I've mentioned before, which is the Railroads Board of Governors, the doctoral student, the Academy, and a participatory action research. So at the heart of this, and the most likely person to make this happen, is President Philip Steenkamp, who is on the RRU Board of Governors. Board of Governors has been around. It's a government legislative thing. So their accountability is pretty high. Philip's experience with other universities and government leads him to, I guess, have the highest score of power and influence, according to using, I believe it was the Bourne book from Chmn 635. We have the Academy. I mentioned George V before, and Keith Webster, who's a brilliant guy in terms of design. The risk of these guys losing is losing these guys would maybe going to another university or sabbatical. In any case, replacing these people in the agenda could be a thing. Now, with the doctoral student researcher and the participatory action researcher, these people are very high, and it's a bit of an unconventional thing that I mentioned. Even though they don't have great academic experience, accessibility must come from the persons who require accessibility, mainly persons with disability. So for the participatory action group, which will inform this agenda in so many ways in the engagement, the risk could be having people fall out, and because it is up to them to design the research that they want, although it is supposed to be on online and blended education, they, I guess, have the right to go any way they want. That's what it makes it participatory research. And for the doctoral student, providing an independent bit of research on accessible education or accessibility in the workplace. Some of the agents or sponsorships or connections that align with this person, as I mentioned before, AMI. So AMI, again, is a media station. They're not big on news, but they do provide news, and it might be a gentle way to hold the whole group accountable and provide some guidelines. All right, how are we going to engage those stakeholders? Well, it's pretty simple for the major stakeholders here. Accessibility is a very timely thing, and we can get on board with it. We can be ahead of the curve because human rights indicate that things are becoming much more inclusive, much more accessible. So rather than be forced to it, we'd rather be timely with it and maybe be ahead of the curve. As far as some of the other minor stakeholders, the cohorts, the faculty, the admin, and everybody at Royal Roads. We have a change assessment tools. I believe it's Bridges, to indicate how ready people are for change. There's other assessments with personality types. We have an executive coaching faculty at Royal Roads, which could lend itself to helping these people to manage their change. Looking at some of the literature, the 3 questions: what is changing, what will be different, who is going to lose what, looking at strategic pragmatism, the best ways forward, books from, I forget who the author is, Scott, on fierce conversations. There's so many tools in terms of the applied sciences that we have at Royal Roads. We can look at things like the future and the return on investments by maybe creating a faculty. People might be motivated by their ego as they are in terms of knowing about what the politically correct ways to handle other marginalized groups, acknowledging the indigenous lands, and now knowing all about inclusiveness and accessibility. So there's a lot of tools we have to engage those stakeholders, and why don't we just cover moving forward on sustaining that? We must know that accessibility is always changing, and even if we get it right in the future, it's going to be different to that until there is a universal language where we don't need accessibility and everybody can do that. And so also, if we look at Peter Senji, with double loop learning, it provides the faculty, staff, students with, instead of performing like single loop functions, enable for groups to learn on their own and just to exponentiate that accessibility and inclusiveness so that it aligns with the policy.